fellow students and already Salus listeners. I'm Dr. Nkaka Raphael, Senior Lecturer of the Department of History and Heritage Studies in the School of Good Governance, University of Rwanda. Today, I'm going to introduce you to the history of Rwanda. That is a sub-unit of civic education, a unit of the model of citizenship, a transformative education assigned to the all fourth-year students. It is important to know that now I play the role of guest speaker, political vision of the Kingdom of Rwanda in connection with citizenship, state building, and national identity. There was a vision about territory expansion and a vision about people or social incorporation in the power structures. Reading 1 is the mission of king. Reading 2, a military vision. Reading 3, the unifying vision. And reading 4, the conclusion. Reading 1, Mission of Kings. Let's start by Mission of the Kings. Cycle had existed prior to the Mutara Semujeshi reform. For instance, we see the repetition of foreign names such as Huye, Ndahiro, Soro, and Ruganzu after Semujeshi. But it is Semujeshi who decides over names to keep in the king's mission from his reign onward. Prior to Semujeshi, Rwanda had kings who had implemented the significant reforms. For example, Kigeli Mukonya decided to have initiated the process of centralization of the country. Ruganzu Ndori had rescued the monarchy of Rwanda. Mutara Semujeshi came as a monarch who made more reforms in the esoteric code, Ubwiru, and in the royal ideology. Abiru considered him as the junior innovator. Semujeshi took a very strong decision of suppressing some of the existing names of reign. He put away the following names: Ndahiro, Ruganzu, and Soro. The first was cited by misfortune because Ndahiro Chamatare lost the dynastic drum Koga. Ruganzu was also a name of previous two kings who were killed by the enemy, Ruganzu Bimba and Ruganzu Ndori. The name Soro was put aside because it was used also in a neighboring monarchy of Bugesera. Then Semujeshi introduced a new name of why Semujeshi ceased to be called Soro and took the name of Mutara Semujeshi. 4 names remained in the cycle of kings and took the following order: Kirima, Kigeli, Mibambwe, Yuhi. Mutara was added to that list and became also a name of the first class in the cycle like Kirima. For the first cycle, it was Mutara, Kigeli, Mibambwe, and Yuhi. While for the second cycle, it should be Kirima, Kigeli, Mibambwe, and Yuhi. Thus, Mutara and Kirima came once for 8 reigns, while the others occurred once after 4 reigns. Since the genealogy became as follows: Cycle 1, we had Mutara Semujeshi, Kigeli Nyamuheshera, Mibambwe Gisanura, and Yuhi Mazimaka. Cycle 2, Kirima Rujugira, Kigeli Ndabarasa, Mibambwe Sentavyo, and Yuhi Gahindiro. In the cycle 3, Mutara Rwogera, Kigeli Rwabugiri, Mibambwe Rutarindwa, and Yuhi Musinga. In the cycle 4, Mutara Rudahigwa and Kigeli Ndahindurwa. It is very important to note that on the above list, there is one king who is omitted, Karemera Rwaka. Nkaka was officially enthroned in Yuhi Mazimaka lifetime, except him as an acting king. He is believed to have resigned when Rujugira, the legitimate heir, arrived from Gisaka to acquire the throne. Some scholars found this narrative not convincing enough. At the same time, in this reform of Semujeshi, particular commitments were dedicated to the monarchs according to their names of reigns. In this regime, the King Mutara and the Kirima would be kings of Keta. That is why they would be organizers of the ritual of watering in the Reshora. They were obliged to stay either in Induga or Ganachambwe and cross the Nyabarongo River once when they were going to organize the ritual of watering in the Reshora. Kigeli and Mibambwe were the kings of conquest and war. This seems to have been so since Kigeli and Mibambwe, Kigeli Mukobanya and Mibambwe Mutabazi, inside and outside the country, they could move everywhere. On the other hand, the monarch called the Yuhi were kings of the fire, which means that their duty was to keep the long life of the royal dynasty, symbolized by the permanence of the fire of Gihanga. They were also kings of Kata. The military court of Giu committed them to live in the Donduga region and never cross the Nyabarongo River. Consider, for instance, the following stuff from the ritual of fire. It is beautiful where it is stored in Kinyarwanda. Umwami ubyara umuriro ni Yuhi, akima Induga, akiza Imana ari Induga, agatsinda ari Induga, akagabinga wari Induga, zihabwa umugaba, zikajya kumutsindira, yambuka uruzi rwa Mwogo rwa Nyabarongo. In the book of Death Fete Coupe, Raphael Sacré, Ancien Rwanda. But this does mean there is a new commitment just cut in practice like that. Some kings, Keta, were obliged by circumstances to protect the country against invasions and acted militarily in a successful manner. But this mission was respected most of the time. The conquest mission owed to the fact that Rwanda envisioned to be a very big country in terms of size. The name Rwanda means Rwanda. We just expand. In order to reach this, military campaigns against neighboring political entities were necessary. The increase of subjects, politically speaking, or people, socially speaking, through conquest were needed. These people who would later become taxpayers, economic producers, and Ngabo members. The demographic increase was also targeted using cultural sensitization. There were a belief that power comes from belonging to a very big family or owning a very big number of subjects. Then, since Rwanda envisioned to expand, its kings were required to be strong warriors. The ritual of intronization that informs us how the new king was enthroned shows how he was prepared literally, psychologically, and socially to be conqueror. As a result, the majority of the Kigeli kings were either great conquerors or great warriors. Careers in the military domain were considered not as the failures, but as misfortune. See, for instance, why in the Huye Campus got one Bwiro ritual in the Red Trust. How Kibirira River is never crossed by Rwandan kings. How names Furuganzo, Soro, and Ndahiro get removed from the reigning names. All this is to avoid contradicting the conquering vision. Leading to military ideology. Let's see now military ideology. The practice of kings of creating a military unit at the advent to be added the existing ones led to the increase of military recruits. This shows some kind of military vision for reaching a bigger size of military recruits in the future. But most importantly, the ideological part of military activities reveals to what extent the military vision was elaborated. Through the Izivugo and the Nzazubiri, we get a grasp of this ideology. The Izivugo trace psychological mobilization at individual and social levels. They also place military exploits at the top of the idil of Ngabo. In dynastic poetry, the king is represented as the most powerful warrior. Sometimes he is compared with the thunder, such as the king Mazimaka, Yuhi Mazimaka. The latter has been considered as the thunder when he defeated the Burundian king Ntare. A poet celebrated the event in his poems in the following terms: Imunsi inkuba iganza intare. The day when the thunder defeated the lion. Besides, women made children followed sometimes military experts. For example, Shozamihigo, Rugamba, Aganda, Gahunga, Tabazi, Kotanyi, Makuza. This practice may have played both a psychological role, but also an educative role. The Ubwiru rituals also visit the king at the level of a great conqueror of other kingdoms. The ritual of enthronement in the Nika socialized, obliged, and instilled the new king to be an extraordinary warrior. He is young, so the Abiru, through this ritual, are trying to instill in him all these ideals. Let us consider some extract. Nika in Kinyarwanda. Umwana Nyabirungu mukuru agasenga mugahora Imana kadaho. Tuje kudaha imigisha y'abandi bami, tuje kudaha ingoma z'abandi bami, tuje kudaha imvura y'abandi bami, tuje kudaha inka z'abandi bami, tuje kudaha imbuto z'abandi bami. Ngo no muri bata twari batunyabungu n'andi mahanga yose turi umwami w'u Rwanda. Military vision, unifying vision. Many clans happen to have been incorporated in organs of power, and they remained within those positions for centuries. Key to this feature was the adoption of implementation of the principle of hereditary political position. Some keepers for power were getting dismissed by their successors of the key position. For example, in the Abiru College, we find the following clans and the lineage. Batsobe, Umwiru w'Umutsobe, Abakono, Umwiru wa Nyamweru, Abatege, Abaheka, Abakobwa, Batambura, Bene Muhinda, and others. Another unifying this feature is that several clans intervened in the rituals of Ubwiru to make the ritual more national and for everybody. Indeed, the reading of Inzira y'Umuriro, Inzira y'Umuganura, Inzira y'Ishora, and Inzira y'Ubwimika indicate that many geographical places, many people of different clans or lineage appear or play a role in the ritual. Men and women of all ages also are present in the ritual. In particular, the annual Muganura ritual unified the peasants around the king. Moreover, rituals were performed at different times or months of the year. The year had many celebrations or rituals that animated, regulated, and kept busy the public life. Through the year, these rituals became like national events that gave Rwandans occasion to meet regularly and share perceptions, beliefs, and practice. Even among the dynastic poets, we see this incorporation of members taken from several clans or lineage. Abanyiginya, Abasinga, Ababanda, Abenenyamurorwa, or Abanukamishi, and the other poets from unknown clans and lineage. The fact that these different clans and lineage hold positions of power within the kingdoms of Rwanda is not haphazard. Indeed, he had taken part in the expansion of Rwanda in the building of social and the political institutions of Rwanda, and even in the enrichment of cultural aspects of Rwanda. Some territories created consciousness about unity among these clans. Moreover, a shared culture among them strengthened a cultural unity. The Rwandan political ideology was also characterized by power sharing, and the power sharing operated in the same line with the nation division. To begin with, just as the kingdom of Rwanda evolved from a small territory of 5 political entities, Buganza, Bwanacyambwe, Buriza, Salus, Rubumbogo, to become the Rwanda of Rwabugiri. So did the idea of variety. It is likely that before the king, Mukobanya, the royal ideology was not yet solid. But since this king, it is mentioned that the process of centralization of the state led progressively to the advent of the idea of nation, at least for a big part of Rwanda. And the monarchy was led by Miginya dynasty. It is this dynasty, together with other clans, that progressively increased the size of the Rwandan territory through conquest and assimilation or negotiation. But the royalty was embodied in the dynastic throne, Goga and then Karinga. The king was its servant just as were Abiru. In this regard, some authors have agreed that it was the royalty that was sacred rather than the king as a person, for it lived among members of this caste. In Rwanda, it was the dynastic trump that was sacred, but the king was also the supreme chief of the army and of the administration. The royal ideology presents the king as a supernatural creature linking Rwandans to God. Sometimes the king has the name Imana or Nyagasani. However, it was believed that theoretically the power of the king was absolute above all because the ideology presented him as the representative of God in Rwanda. It has been made clear that in practice, the monarch didn't enjoy absolute power. Indeed, the royal hierarchy proposed to the king a permanent queen called Queen Mother Mugabekazi, with whom he shared power. The Queen Mother was chosen by the ritualists among the clans named Rwanda, Basinga, Abakono, Abega, Abaha, Abazigaba, and Abagesera. This said, there was the religious and the political power of Abiru. The king's power was therefore to some extent limited. It was also shared among many other organs that had members coming from different clans and families. The royal ideology contained also a unifying vision in terms of peace, prosperity, and attitude. The Ishora ritual expressed that ideology in nourishing plants, seed, milk, sorghum beer, and the hydromel, peace, kindness, and sharpness to all Rwandans, including the king, all men, and all women. It wished peace also to all drums in the capital of Rwanda. It is important to note that all wishes were addressed not only to men, but also and always to women. That ritual aimed at renewing a dynastic cycle. For that reason, we find many wishes for the following cycle. Through the wishes, it is possible to see the vision of the Rwandan core cut during the next period. The Umuganura ritual aimed in particular at increasing the agriculture production of sorghum. This ritual was also very crucial in the political vision, given the fact that the ritual reveals the kingdom unity and the solidarity among Rwandan people. In addition, each year, the ritual defined who was belonging or not to the kingdom of Rwanda. One can agree that they omit to talk about the so-called ethnic cleavage, Hutu, Tutsi, and Tutwa. The source plots don't allow us to state a pre-colonial vision aimed at creating cleavage or eradicating the existing one. We don't have any pre-colonial source describing Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa through physical, moral, social-political, and psychological tests. We don't have any source stipulating that Rwanda was first populated by the Twa race, followed by the Hutu race, and lastly by the conquerors of the Tutsi race who came from Abyssinia or Ethiopia behind their cows seeking pastures for the animals. Such descriptions have been promoted from the colonial period onwards. The Ethiopian origin of Tutsi and Hima in East Africa has been invented by British explorer John Hanning Speke in 1863 and adopted with supporting evidence by almost authors after him. Let's consider the following extract from his book. My theory is founded on the tradition of several nations as shaped by my own observation of what I saw when I passing through them, this Hima. It appears impossible to believe, judging from the physical appearances of the Hima, that they can be any other race than Hamitic of Ethiopia. Such statements don't deserve to be considered scientific. We are presenting here the mechanism of state in national identity building, not a place for an ancient kingdom totally unified and prosperous. The ancient kingdom of Rwanda was not a place of good governance, of complete unity, of social cleavage. What we present here is the mechanism used to build the state and to create a citizenship and a national identity. Those mechanisms were then rotating but aimed at building the nation through prosperous period and the political and the social crisis. The reading for dynastic poems, Ibisigo, the royal rituals, Izazubwiru, Izivugo, the historical tales, Ibitekerezo, and the written version of pre-colonial Rwanda are with us to highlight those mechanisms. Those mechanisms were not defined in theories, but we can outline them by checking and analyzing the ancient literature of Rwanda. Reading for conclusion. To conclude, the mission of Rwanda kings, as formulated by Transformative, stress in clear and open terms the political vision or philosophy of Rwanda viewed in the lenses of its kings. On the other hand, how power was defined, managed, and shared among several clans, Rwanda shows implicitly the implementation of that political philosophy. The political vision of pre-colonial Rwanda was shaped around the ideal of having a bigger Rwanda, a more powerful Rwanda, literally, a more populated Rwanda, a more prosperous Rwanda, and a more unified Rwanda. The means is to reach this wide vision include the setting up of administrative and institutional mechanisms and the regular reform of those mechanisms, military affairs, but also religious or ritual performances. How political and military ideals were popularized and socialized through rituals and literary gems, Izazubwiru, Ibisigo, Imigani, Izivugo, Imigani miremire, Imigani migufi, in the public performances or celebrations, Ibitaramo, such as a constant need for pre-colonial Rwandan either to have this vision and the philosophy shared among all Rwandans and spread to next generation. This point is also emphasized by many authors. Rwanda's political system and ideology were built on 4 pillars, namely a monarchy conceived in terms of theocracy, a two-head monarchy, king and queen mother, and a policy of territorial aggrandizement, conquest, and patriotism, all of which were inculcated constantly the people, especially through literary institutions. Dear students, I am at the end of my speech. I'd like to thank you and the Radio Salus. The related references and handouts will be available on the University of Rwanda e-learning platform. Goodbye. Thank you.